Tonight's talk is called Uncovering Your Natural Awareness. And I want to start by saying it's so great to see you all enjoying each other's company. It's wonderful. And you're doing it online as well, or you were doing it online. Thanks. That's really why we gather here, isn't it? For community, for Sangha. So this past Sunday, I don't know where you were on Sunday, but here in Charlottesville, it was a bright, brilliant sky day, bright sunshine. And if you were outside, you could feel the sun's warmth, even though the temperature was chilly. There's something about this time of year, late February, that the warmth invites us into a relationship with the earth. And partially that's because if we're outside, we're seeing the early signs of spring. Last week, I saw a video of my granddaughter sitting outside in West Virginia in the snow and brilliant bright blue sunshine. And in the video, they held their arms and hands outstretched like a mudra with the palms open. And I'm wondering, what are they doing? And we watched, and lo and behold, periodically, a chickadee would come down and land on their palms where they had placed sunflower seeds. And it was really quite magical to see these chickadees land on the palms and get a seed and fly off. Their delight was my delight. And isn't it that often true that we feel it vicariously, another's delight? And there's some way in which we are invited into relationship, and in this case, it was a strong relationship with nature, obviously. And all of this tends to generate a warm heart. And what I think many of us discover with more and more of these teachings, understandings, is that a warm heart is at the essence of this practice. And it's in those moments sometimes of this warm heart experience that we get a glimpse of natural awareness, which is the topic of tonight's talk. And it's not an easy concept to describe. The mind is like a wide open space. It feels simultaneously happy, at rest, and at ease. And everything is just passing by. The wonderful thing about it is that it's innate. This isn't something we have to study or practice. It's available to all of us anytime. So tonight's talk is really focused a little bit on about how we can become more intimate with our nature as nature, with seeing ourselves as part of the natural processes of the world, of what's going on in the world, and as inseparable from all other life forms. Some people have used the term Buddha nature, natural awareness, sort of interchangeably as a way to describe this sense of not being separate from that which is. And, the Buddha nature is one of the three jewels of Buddhism. It's one of the three refuges. So it bears paying attention to and becoming familiar with. It's really, most of the time, or a lot of the time, we operate from ordinary mind. And we know what that is. We are aware that sometimes we're on autopilot. Things are just happening. We're moving along. We're on our to-do list. There's an agenda. And oftentimes when we are on that automatic pilot, we're wedded to the way certain things are. We're wedded to our ideas about how things are. We're holding on pretty tightly sometimes to opinions. I'm like this, he's like that. Um, she never, he always. We can probably complete those sentences with regard to our own life experiences, our own relationships with others. Because the ordinary mind has a tendency to cling to the stories that reinforce old patterns and old habits. I'm sure you can probably think of a relationship you have with someone for whom there is a perceived way of understanding them, that you have a notion that they are like this because, and often there's a story behind it. And sometimes it's based on childhood conditioning, if it's an old relationship, or sometimes it's just the way the brain is put together. So for example, intellectually, we can recognize this idea of impermanence, that things change, that our bodies, gosh, this body is changing. Our thoughts were coming and going. Our emotions are rising, falling, changing. And still we get caught. Pema Chodron uses the word hooked. She says we get hooked by a word, a sound, a sight, a thought. We get hooked. And last week, Tueri talked about this box that we live in that is shaped with certain ideas about how things are, the way we see things. And we live inside that box, shaped by where we grew up, perhaps, by memory. And we must honor that these viewpoints or these stories that we have often developed out of a need for safety or out of a need for satisfaction or out of a need for connection. So there's a reason often why these views exist, why our views seem so intractable at times. But the stories have a tendency then to become the scaffolding for our beliefs. So we have a story about something and that gets implanted, and then there's another one, then there's another one, and all of a sudden we have a pretty rigid building box that we've created from these ideas. And when we're used to looking through that lens, that way of seeing things, we have a tendency to look at everything that way. So it's a bit like maybe you're focused looking outside of a window, for example, on one thing, and then you turn your head and there's something totally different going on over there. And I know I've had the thought, oh my goodness, what did I miss over here? There's all this other stuff going on. And that's sort of the way the mind works at times. We are so focused on what's right in front of us or what we've constructed here, that we're not seeing that which is also true. So the question then becomes, if our needs for safety are met, our needs for satisfaction, our needs for community or connection, can we recognize the fluidity of all forms? And can we, in the recognition of the fluidity of all forms, can we allow that to help disempower the false claims of the fixed mind? We've got these sense doors, eyes, ears, etc., that are always relaying information. The mind takes that incoming sensation or perception, and it adds to it, it modifies it, it remembers something else that's connected to this, it spins it, and it creates entire fictions around just a sound or just a sight. And haven't you had that experience where you've seen one thing or heard one thing, and all of a sudden the mind is off and running down a long track? So again, the question, can we recognize the fluidity of all forms, see what's coming through the sense doors, and really stop to notice what's here? What's here? What's here? What's being added? So this principle of Buddha nature, of natural awareness, would invite us to explore our experience, to see if it's possible to simply be aware of being aware. Awareness is it's like a thread that runs throughout every experience we have. And awareness just is. It doesn't improve if we have an inspired thought. It doesn't get worse when we're completely neurotic. You can remember to your last moment of when you were completely neurotic. And awareness didn't get worse then. It just is. It's not something we do, it's what we are. Sometimes there's this idea that the biggest challenge with awareness is that it's so close, we don't see it. It's so ordinary, we don't believe it. So perhaps the question is, how can we remember or recognize it? And maybe one of the first things to know is that even though it's changeless, it just is, it's not a blank, lifeless state. So when we're present with what's happening around us, within us, there's a lot going on. And part of that awareness is a sense of compassion. That's, again, an innate quality here. And we can see this just by looking at something as simple as our wish to avoid pain. So just in that moving away from, to avoid pain or discomfort, there's a seed of compassion within that for ourselves. So, we shift our posture, we blink our eyes to avoid discomfort. And really what we're doing is expressing compassion for this being, this organism that needs something a little bit different. If you're present with a friend and the friend says something or smiles, and that feeling of warmth and love that emerges, that too is part of our innate ability to be with what's here, what's present. So I want to invite you right now to just close your eyes for a few minutes, if that's okay with you. Sit back in your chair, wherever you are, relaxed. And invite you to see what it's like to access natural awareness. And for many people, this is more easily done if you can just choose a memory, something. It could be from your childhood, or it could be from a recent memory of a time when you felt awake, when you felt peaceful, connected, expansive, when you felt just like you were in a state of being. Maybe you were out in nature somewhere, Maybe you were in the middle of an intense athletic activity, or in an artistic flow, maybe you were creating something, or just laughing uproariously with a good friend. Can you remember where you were in that moment? What did you see? What did you hear? And how did it feel in that moment of connectedness, peacefulness? What did the body feel like? And how about the heart? See if there are any other details of sights or smells or sounds that were present. And then shift from remembering and notice what's happening in this present moment. Is there a sense of beingness, awareness right now? Just imagining that past experience? And what does that feel like? Ease or pleasure or wholeness? And when you're ready, just opening the eyes again. So possibly in recalling one experience of that ease, there may be a whole bunch of other ones that will come to mind. And they can be very quick, very short, or more extensive. So just as compassion and love are present in us, um, natural awareness also has a quality of insight, of really a deep kind of wisdom that all of us have within us. And again, um, it's present, but we're not always able to access it so easily. Because sometimes we have a sense that there's something missing here. So we're on a search to try to find that something. What's also true is that wisdom is the companion for all this searching. Every one of us has it, and we don't often trust ourselves to acknowledge that it's there, to see it. So, for example, if I'm indulging in an old harmful habit, I may have some sense that I'm off track. I may not listen to that wisdom, but it's there nonetheless. So just perhaps to pay attention in your experience of life when it is that there's some inner voice or some inner intuitive knowing that's present that maybe we've tamped down or ignored in the past, but to pay attention and see when it arises. So this quality of natural awareness, it isn't something we do. It's something we need to recognize. And I didn't bring it with me tonight, but Diana Winston has a lovely book out that speaks to natural awareness. And what's wonderful about the book is that it contains what she calls glimpse practices. So just ideas about how you might cultivate this recognition of natural awareness innate within you. And she writes it from a very down-to-earth perspective. So you, if you read this, will identify with so many experiences that she relates in this book of working with natural awareness. Sometimes it's recommended that the simple way to explore this is just to stop doing and just give yourself some time to be. And in this culture, the impetus, the conditioning to do is so powerful that we go, what? Well, what am I supposed to do? That's our question. And we can't quite believe that there's nothing to do, that it's just being here. And the cool thing about natural awareness is that once we've met the basic needs for safety, that there's not any experience that can get in the way of awareness. We can just let them all be here and notice that awareness is here. And if you're aware of your awareness, that's enough. Some of you have heard, I think Anna has referred to interbeing, this term used by Thich Nhat Hanh, the interdependence of all things. And this is related to natural awareness. So I think once we begin to understand any one of these concepts, it can allow us to move into understanding others. What's really cool is that what we're learning is that we are not autonomous, self-created beings that we so often believe ourselves to be, but we are really, our lives are the result of co-arising causes and conditions. I have a lot more to say on this topic, but I'm going to stop right there because of the time and because I want us to have time to break into small groups to speak with each other a little bit, listen to each other a little bit. So just want to end there by saying there's both much and nothing to contemplate with natural awareness. Just leave you with that, the mystery of that statement. And as the Buddha said, see what makes sense out of this for yourself. If it fits, if some phrase has meaning, great. If not, let it go. Trust your innate wisdom. So here's what I'd like for us to do in the remaining time that we have tonight, or for the next, let's say, 8 to 10 minutes. Just break into small groups and to reflect back to that time when you felt you were in a place where time, space dissolved. And just to speak a little bit about what that was like for you. So let's get into groups. Here, if you would just find yourself like in maybe a little group of 3 or 4, and online, like maybe groups of 4, and we'll take the next, let's say 8 minutes, 7 minutes, till 8:22. I'm wondering if anybody here would like to speak to what came up in your reflection, to share any insight or curiosity that you have, or online.
Teresa, I will just say that my strongest experience of pure awareness allowed great freedom. Just it permitted a freedom that would otherwise have been inaccessible to me.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else online or here?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we all saw was that these experiences but very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, so nature as a wonderful, there's some sort of a release there. Yeah. Bev, are you about to sit? Okay, just checking. Anybody else want to add a comment?
One moment I felt was teaching in a classroom, connecting with students and trying to communicate, and their second language is English. And we had a moment when we just all burst out laughing because it was so funny. It was just the way, and it was like I wasn't there. It just, we were all one, you know? And I don't know, that, like, to me, maybe that's awareness, just being aware of the connection. And the laughter. You mentioned laughter.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Yeah, that, and the sense of timelessness and oneness, I think that you point to is the quality of this experience. So I'll just close tonight. And the natural world is a place where many of us have that sense of no judgment, no comparing mind. Comparing mind seems to just disappear when we walk outside. And the other thing that I didn't speak much about tonight, but could be part of this talk as well, would be generosity, would be this notion that we are inherently, we are inclined to generosity. We are inclined to be generous, to give. So, and I don't mean just financially, I mean in so many other ways. So one of the practices here might be as a way to let the body relax, expand, is to reflect on your own goodness and your acts of generosity that have occurred throughout your lifetime. And this is from Rilke. See the flowers so faithful to earth. We know their fate because we share it. Were they to grieve for their wilting, that grief would be ours to feel. There's a lightness in things. Only we move forever burdened, pressing ourselves into everything, obsessed by weight. How strange and devouring our ways must seem for those to whom life is enough. If you could enter their dreaming and dream with them, you would come back different to a different day, moving so easily from that common depth. Or maybe just stay there. They would bloom and welcome you. All those brothers and sisters tossing in the meadows, and you would be one of them. So may our practice, our thoughts, our words, our radical presence, may all of these serve the well-being, the safety, the happiness, in the freedom of all beings everywhere. Thank you for being here, for your presence and your practice.